Welcome to CareTalk, America's home for incisive debate on healthcare, business, and politics. I'm John Driscoll, the chairman of the UConn Health System, and today I am delighted to be hosting with one of my favorite fitness nerds, Dr. Jordan Metzl, who, in addition to being a brilliant orthopod, is one of the leaders in fitness and the motivational impact of fitness to change people, the arc of people's life and aging at a time when we are in a longevity moment. People are investing in longevity businesses. We're talking about all kinds of odd cocktails to improve and increase people's lifespan. Dr. Jordan Metzl has just published a great book, Push, Unlock the Science of Fitness Motivation to Embrace Health and Longevity. And perhaps Dr. Jordan will change the conversation about longevity back to where it should be, motivation and fitness. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
So, Dr. Metzl, maybe talk about your own, the arc of your own relationship with fitness. Perhaps starting with your dad, and you could tell us whether you're actually a better athlete than your two brothers as well.
That's the most important part first. But yeah, I guess just starting with the backstory, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you and your audience about this interface of medicine and fitness and preventive health. So I'm a sports medicine physician at Hospital for Special Surgery, and I've been here for 25, 26 years. And I basically had two separate circles of my life growing up. And I went through, I came through a family where both parents were doctors. All my brothers are Dr. Metzl. Three of the four of us are medical doctors. And in the medical training and medical part of my life, the circle was, something is broken. Let's fix that broken thing. And then simultaneously, I had a parallel track of being active. I played soccer in high school and college and ended up starting to do marathons in residency and started doing triathlons and very much started to have this kind of separate circle of being actively involved in fitness. So I had the circle of medicine and the circle of fitness, and they were two separate circles. Now, after practicing sports medicine for a while, I realized that getting people up and moving was a great thing to do, and that my vantage point as a sports medicine physician was pretty unique, and that I could hopefully inspire them to start doing that. So I started talking to my patients about exercise. And essentially it went in one ear and came out the other for some people. So then I had the idea, listen, why don't I start a fitness community? I started really small in the basement of a gym and started teaching fitness classes to kind of 10, 15 people. And the idea was that if I could work on strengthening their muscles, they would have less pain and do better. And the benefit for me was, relative to the end part of your question, if I made my muscles stronger, I could beat my brother. We were doing the same events, marathons and triathlons, and I could beat him in triathlons if I made myself stronger. So there was both a benefit for my patients and a side benefit for me. What I realized going forward from that, and that was about 15 years ago, was that from my vantage point as a doctor, I could basically help push this conversation. So I started kind of reaching out to different venues and started growing this program called Iron Strength. And the idea was to teach people and to prescribe the medicine of exercise for people en masse. And so we started getting bigger. Fast forward to today, we now have over 50,000 people in this kind of community, and we run about 27, 28 programs a year, all free. And we get people out. We have three of our signature programs have over 1,000 people doing workouts en masse on the flight deck of the Intrepid, which is an aircraft carrier parked in the Hudson River. And it's really wonderful. I started with people that were basically a lot like me, kind of people that were runners and triathletes. But over time, people brought their parents and grandparents and kids. And we have this kind of multi-generational program now, and it's really great.
That's the intimidating thing, I think, about fitness for a lot of people. But let's maybe get back to that in a second. There's an enormous amount of interest in kind of longevity. The doctor, Brian Johnson on Netflix, kind of ingesting all kinds of things, including, the transfusions from his family members. And there's this wave of supplement after supplement and health advice after health. What do the longevity hackers of the moment get wrong about health and health span?
Well, so I think there are a couple terms here. So first of all, wanting to live a longer, healthier life is a great thing, and it's certainly nothing new. Like the ancient Egyptians, were buried with their slaves and pets because they thought they would have them in the afterlife. Ponce de Leon in 1513 went out in search of the fountain of youth and wasn't successful, but he has a great statue after himself in St. Augustine, Florida. And the idea that we want people to live longer, healthier lives is a great thing. The problem is that much of the advance we've had with longevity is related to, scientific advances in the past 150 years. So, sanitation, vaccines, clean water, antibiotics, those things more than doubled life expectancy from, the mid 1800s was about 42, 43 years old to now it's close to 80. What we're talking about now are people obsessing about kind of the margins when it comes to kind of doing supplements and all these different kinds of things. And listen, I have no problem if somebody wants to do something and they're not affecting anybody else and they want to spend their hard-earned money on some of these different ideas. I have no problem with it. But I think we need to really focus on what we know the most about. And by far, we have the best evidence on the medicine of movement. Exercise is the most studied drug we have for longevity and, more importantly, healthy longevity, maintaining your health throughout your lifespan.
I mean, just to be clear, your message in PUSH is the most important prescription for a healthy life is exercise and movement. Period.
I have the front quote of the book. I actually have it right here. Gandhi, you must visualize the change you want to see. And me, commit to getting off your ass. That's the message. Every single day, every single way, commit to getting off your ass. And that's what the message is of this. I want you to push yourself both physically and physiologically
I'm just so
to give you the
disappointed
best health.
that wasn't the headline, that it was PUSH. but let's dig into one of the more interesting things you sort of lay out in the book, because it's not just a prescription for fitness. You get into the psychology and the motivation of fitness and movement and non-movement and non-fitness. You refer to motivation as a science. Is it really a science, or are certain people just born to be athletes and others are born to be sedentary? I mean, that's sort of the way our society is today. I mean, is motivation a science?
Yeah, great questions. And so, listen, what I like to think about is what makes people have habits and what are those habits over the course of their life. I mean, my previous books have been a lot about this kind of medicine, fitness interface, books on running and taking care of your aching knees. But this is the first time I've kind of really waded into this water of motivation. And I will tell you, it's a lot easier to read somebody's MRI and see if they have a torn meniscus or a torn ACL than it is to understand motivation. It's a very murky subject, and there's not a one size fits all. But what I did for this book is I interviewed a whole number of my patients, some of whom were exercising into their 90s, and really wanted to get an idea of what is motivating them. And I came away with the idea that, motivation is either for some people built into their DNA, what they do. And I think I'm really lucky that, my amazing family and parents, particularly my dad, was a big driver in pushing me to, move every single day. But if that's not part of what you do, and unfortunately the vast majority of people in our country and in our world are not exercising regularly, despite the health benefits, what can we do to start thinking about their equation and how can we change that? And so one of the analogies I give is like a tractor tire, and that it takes the most energy to get that tire off the ground. And once it starts rolling, it adopts a momentum of its own. And so how do you adapt that momentum? And it takes several months of consistency, but if you can really think about consistent behaviors, and I try and get into some of that, it really helps change your motivational profile, and a habit starts to form over time.
And maybe talk a little bit about the knowledge, emotion, and belief components of motivation, because I think a lot of people know they should be exercising more, but don't.
That's right. So what I try and do is to break down, you should be doing this. You're emotional about what you're doing. I believe I should be doing it. The theme I keep coming back to, which I think is the easiest for people to kind of understand, for me as well, was the idea of lowering your cost to act. What does that mean exactly? So I want to lower my cost to act. Well, lowering my cost to act means I want to take whatever it is that's kind of blocking me from doing this, and I want to remove as many barriers as I can. I have a great patient story for this, and that I had a patient of mine who, like many, knew it was important to start exercising regularly, had a busy finance job here in New York and a couple kids, and just didn't have time to do it. And so overall, he was starting to put on a little bit of weight and feeling lousy and less energy. And he kept saying, I know I need to do this. I've kind of paid subscriptions. I did all these different things. And so we thought about how can we lower your cost to act? this guy loved his shoes and his running shoes. And so what he did is he would go to his local gym right over here on 63rd Street, and they have day lockers. And he would put his exercise clothes and his running shoes in his day locker and lock it in the morning, 6:15 in the morning. And in these day lockers, if you don't show up by the end of the day, they cut off your lock and put your stuff in the lost and found. And so he essentially forced himself to stop off on the way home by locking his clothes and his running shoes in his day locker. And when he was there, the cost to act was lowered, and that made a difference for him. And he was there. It's like, all right, might as well start. And he started an exercise habit that he was able to keep going and still is going to this day. So people have different ways to lower their cost to act. Some people prepay a trainer or join a group or have a club or whatever. But, figuring out lowering your cost to act is the best way to start thinking about changing that discussion around motivation.
I mean, the thing that's striking about the lack of movement is basically you lay out a case that says that low movement and little exercise is as dangerous as smoking or diabetes, which is just a shocker. I mean, is it possible that the lack of movement can be as dangerous as a chronic disease like diabetes or putting your lungs at risk with smoking?
Not only do we have great evidence on that, but we have great evidence on the preventative nature of exercise, independent of some of the issues like, lifestyle or dietary changes or weight. It's much healthier to be moderately overweight, mild to moderately overweight and active than it is to be very thin and inactive. So in our days of GLP-1, everybody wanting to get as skinny as possible, that doesn't really necessarily equate to many, many health benefits. Activity is the best drug. Movement is by far the safest, free, and most effective drug across the entire spectrum of the human condition. That's why I'm so passionate about prescribing it, not only saying people should do it, but actually prescribing it to patients and to my community on a regular basis.
What's it going to take to get other doctors to prescribe movement? Because you're not actually laying out the old presidential fitness test. You're not saying everybody needs to be a marathoner. Your exercise prescription is actually within most people's ambition and ability. What's it going to take to get doctors to start to prescribe exercise?
Well, it's interesting. We started now about 10 years ago when I started recognizing I had this kind of community and that it was impactful. About 10 years ago now, we started a seminar next door for the second-year med students at Cornell called Prescribing the Medicine of Exercise. And we started looking around for curriculum to look at the effect of exercise on chronic disease and mental health and prevention and the exercise prescription. And there was literally no curriculum for medical students. Like, you learn about how to do all kinds of exotic things, and you learn nothing about the thing that probably makes a bigger difference than many of the things you spend, days and weeks studying.
Pause on that if exercise is one of the most important elements of fitness, there has to be something you learn in medical school about exercise and the science of... No?
Not a thing. There was zero curriculum. And so we started kind of looking through this curriculum. That was 10 years ago. There's a little more movement now, but still not as much as I would like to see. But there are certainly, as you see some of the advertising around different healthcare systems, I know here at HSS, we're looking at starting a center around movement and longevity. There are many others doing the same. There has been, with this kind of longevity craze, which, I'm not a big believer we can dramatically extend life expectancy, but we definitely can extend healthy longevity.
We're not all going to live to 150. Come on, Dr.
I don't want
Metzl.
to, but we can definitely extend healthy longevity. We can reduce the risk of disease, certainly. And so by thinking about those things with movement, we want to think about how do we ensure our patients in our community can be as active as possible. And I think healthcare systems in general are starting to lean into that, but it still is community dependent, geographically dependent. So there are a number of factors which I think we still have to kind of sort out, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
A lot of people who might be less motivated to exercise than the triathlon family that you belong to think of exercise as a luxury good. And you kind of make a passionate case of the opposite by laying out your plans, and maybe talk a little bit about that exercise isn't a luxury. It's sort of an essential element of fitness.
That's right. So, what I try and break down for people is how they can think about structuring their exercise programming, some combination of, cardiopulmonary fitness, but also strength. I make a strong, impassioned case for the importance of building and maintaining muscle across your lifespan for healthy longevity. And we think about muscle in two categories. Number one is just for locomotion. If somebody comes in to see me with an achy knee or an achy shoulder, by strengthening the muscles around that achy body part, we can reduce some of the symptoms and maintain joint mobility. But secondarily, muscle is extremely important both for its endocrine and exocrine properties. So when you build and maintain skeletal muscle, when you start exercising, you're able to store glucose in the form of glycogen, which is important for fuel going forward. It also reduces some of the load on your pancreas, so you're better able to regulate blood sugar, but just by keeping your muscle mass. And then also when you exercise, muscle secretes anti-inflammatory properties called interleukins, and these act throughout the body to reduce general inflammation. There's a concept called inflammaging, the inflammatory basis of chronic disease. So things like heart disease and cancer and diabetes, etc. Almost every chronic disease is related to this chronic inflammatory state, and building and maintaining muscle.
Yeah, I think it's really important to underscore that, Dr. Metzl, because I do think that is a well held now, well documented part of what's happening with chronic disease, that inflammation affects all of the bad stuff that is accelerating the worst types of aging and chronic disease. And you're saying, I think, that simple exercise and lifting weights and movement actually can materially change the arc of that.
Absolutely. The big three: neurodegenerative disease, cancer, metabolic syndrome such as diabetes, metabolic diseases, very much related to chronic inflammation. These are the most expensive diseases in our world, and certainly in American and Western healthcare systems. And getting off your,
Tush.
every single day, tush, can help reduce the disease burden across the board in these things. So absolutely, we should be not only thinking about treating disease, we should be thinking about preventing disease with the medicine of movement and muscle.
And you actually have a pretty straightforward plan. Do you want to talk through your 4-week push plan to get folks started?
Yeah, listen, we were trying to look at, is there a way to evaluate motivation? And again, as I mentioned before, looking at an MRI, like your meniscus is torn, it's not. You have a broken wrist on your X-ray, you don't. You assess your motivation was a much more challenging concept. And so there wasn't a great kind of motivational tool to assess somebody's motivation. There's a lot of different factors. But what I tried to do was trying to give some of the basic paradigms of motivational assessment. How motivated am I? What am I doing? What are my daily activities? How often am I thinking about doing these types of things? Give a basic score that you would add up at the end of those different categories. And then, over a period of 4 weeks, try and change your score a little bit at a time. One thing we just recently learned from a big study published out of Germany, looking at basically small behavior changes affecting people's health, just sleeping a little bit more, exercising a little bit more, changing your dietary patterns. Even these small changes can have a much more significant effect than we thought previously on healthy longevity. So what I'm after is,
what would be a small change?
Trying to walk 5 minutes more, trying to do something that makes you huff and puff a little more, trying to do air squats during the day when you're just sitting around or standing around, trying to just make small behavior changes that can add up over time. And they seem to make a significant difference in your health profile. So I'm not after the grand slam home run. I'm after just, small singles a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm. And what, you've got 80 exercises in the book. What would be your top 5 to get people started?
Well, listen, I want things, what I put in the back of this were things people do anytime, anywhere with body weight. You don't have to join a fancy gym. You can literally do these things anywhere. So things like squats and lunges and planks and push-ups. And I give all different kinds of variations of these things based on your age and your strength and your mobility. So listen, there's different ways to do a plank based on what you're able to do. Are your knees off the ground? Are your knees on the ground? Anything is better than nothing. And I have people.
And what I love about your book, though, is you just need to buy the book, and then the exercise program is free. I mean, they're just. I want to make this really straightforward. It's a really well thought through set of routines where people can get started sort of out of the gate. It's actually incredibly practical.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's a combination of my medical world, treating disease, and my fitness world, preventing disease. And so I try to marry them together to give people an assessment tool and to try and figure out how they can assess their motivation and then build functional strength throughout their life.
We're at the beginning of the year, and a lot of people have committed to greater fitness, more activity, and a lot of those commitments just fall by the wayside. Historically, 80 to 90% of people's New Year's resolutions fail. Maybe we could wrap with what would be the one piece of advice you'd give the person who's motivated but not active yet to make a resolution about how to push themselves and how to keep it?
That's exactly a great question. That's exactly what I want people to do. So maybe think about how I can lower my cost to act. I mentioned before how I can make that behavior change that I want to be practical in my life. And to me, the biggest help in lowering the cost to act is fun and community. Those seem to be the two most influential things. So number one, am I smiling do I like walking outside? I like walking up a hill. I like, doing tango class. I like yoga. Something that makes you smile, you're much more likely to be consistent with. And number two is the power of community. The exercise classes that I run are great, but I'm sure they're as great as any other exercise people could do. The benefit of what I've been doing is building community. So I'm actually prescribing exercise by prescribing community. Just people don't fully recognize it. That's why they're having such a great time, and they'll do it. And so find a community and make it something that makes you smile, and you're much more likely to succeed.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jordan Metzl, the longtime fitness guru, and most recently the author of Push. If you liked what you heard or you didn't, we'd love you to subscribe on your favorite service to CareTalk. Dr. Jordan, thanks so much.
It was a pleasure to visit with you.